And we're live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to InvenTank, the show for inventors, where I am joined by a special guest host each week to help answer all of your burning invention questions. I'm Lisa Lloyd, and we're streaming live today on LinkedIn and Facebook, or you may be catching us on your favorite podcasting platform with one of our replays. In a moment, I'll open up our Q&A, question and answer forum. So feel free to drop your questions in the comments at any time throughout our show, and we'll answer them in the order in which they come in. Joining me today at my guest host is Richard Haasnoot, founder of Innovate to Grow Experts. Richard was the vice president of marketing at Procter Gamble and E&J Gallo Winery, and has had a long career in innovation. And his teams have been responsible for products like Swiffer, Gatorade, the PT Cruiser, and many, many more successful products that I'm sure you've heard of. Welcome back, Richard. Thank you so much for being here today to help me answer these questions.
Good to be here, and hope we can help people be more successful innovators today.
And when he says that, it's like that nice little stoic thing, but this is truly his heart, which is why I have him on today, why he is one of my mentors. Actually, he is my prime mentor, my go-to person. His compassion and caring outweighs all of his incredible knowledge and wisdom, and I'm incredibly grateful to have him in my life. So, Richard, before we dive into the questions from our audience, your company, I2GE, Innovate to Grow Experts, works with large companies on the front end of innovation, which for those of you who are not familiar with that phrase, FE or front end, it is actually a phrase used commonly in corporate world for what happens up to the point basically of getting the intellectual property. So everything on the R&D side, validating the opportunity, maybe even testing the opportunity, but all of that front end ideation primarily is the front end of innovation. And you use the 8 most proven best practices for that process. One of them you've named Quantum Idea Generation 2.0. And I think inventors can glean a lot of really important lessons from this particular best practice. And I was hoping we could kick things off with you just kind of explaining to us what that is.
Yeah, Quantum Idea Generation 2.0 is something I developed after Doug Hall at Eureka Ranch. Doug and I were brand managers at Procter Gamble together. Friends, he developed 1.0. And 1.0, he...
Uh-oh. That's unusual. Now, I assume do me a favor, folks, if you're watching, please drop a little comment and let me know if he froze up for you also, or if that's just...
There we go.
Hang on one second, Richard. I think there's a connection issue. There we go. Okay, it seems like it's working again.
Okay. So the primary reason out of the 8 best practices, quantum idea generation clearly is the reason clients hire us more than any of the others. And that's because it generates 12 times more ideas than brainstorming. More importantly than the quantity of ideas, which is always important, it generates a quality of ideas that you will never get from brainstorming. I don't use that word never casually.
No, you do not. Yeah. Never and always, right?
So how does it do that? Well, there's 4 factors. First, we bring a very diverse group of people into a creative session. Creative sessions that we run for clients typically run 2, maybe 3 days. We'll have 12 to 16 or 20 people in there, and it's a very diverse group from the client, from us, and outside experts that we get, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. Diversity is critical to success because you get a wide range of thinking that you would never get by yourself. Second, that we bring in stimulus, and this is stimulus about all kinds of things, all the way from what the business is like, what customers like, how other people are solving similar problems, on and on and on. Inspirational stimulus. It's to really help you be inspired to generate your very best ideas. People are either left brain or right brain for the most part in terms of how they like to generate ideas. And so we'll use left brain creative idea generate exercises and right brain. They're very different ways of generating ideas. And lastly, and very importantly, we get fear out of the creative session. And at least you think that fear is not an important thing. Fear kills creativity. And if you don't proactively get it out of a creative session, and everybody comes into the room with some level of fear, they walk in the room and they go, "Oh my God, there's a whole bunch of strangers here. Who are they? What are they doing here?" So things like that. Okay. So all that is there. So I one last thing I want to make here is to help you, because I've just done this in a few seconds. About 5 years ago, I realized that the only people that got access to the innovation best practices were people that had 6 and 7 digit budgets to pay me to invent products for them. And I realized what I wanted to do was make these best practices and a whole lot more available to people for free around the world. And that produced the Innovation Best Practices podcast, which today has over 300 episodes, a wide range of content. You can listen to it anywhere that you listen to podcasts. I strongly urge you to listen to the first 100, go look at the first 100 to 150 episodes. There's great stuff there. And it's all sort of proven stuff. And today it's benefiting people. I've got listeners in 143 countries, and it's free, and it always will be free. Okay.
That's awesome.
So that's what that's all about.
That's awesome. All right. So you talk about, and we talked, for those of you who are just joining us, I want to just remind you, you can drop your questions. I see a few starting to come in here. Thank you. We'll answer your questions in the order in which they come in. But also, as a reminder, Richard's been a regular host. He's come on and helped me answer your questions now since the beginning of the program about a year ago. And we did a deeper dive on this in our episode, I believe last month. We did Quantum 2.0, but I wanted to kind of set the stage for those of you who maybe didn't see or hear that particular podcast, so that we could really get into what I want to learn more about, which is the expertise, the people that you bring into the room to help now alleviate the fear and address the right and left brain, to create that stimulus that ultimately results in true innovation and sometimes truly disruptive innovation. How do you find those experts, and how important are they even? Why can't you just have the company who knows their company and their products, and you who knows how to facilitate ideation? Why do you need to bring in more experts from outside of their team?
Yeah, great question. And when I talked about quantum idea generation, I talked about diversity. And yes, there's a diverse group from the client, there's a diverse group from Innovate to Grow experts, but then we go out and find world-class expertise in areas that's relevant to solving the client's need, but does not duplicate their skills. And I'm going to go through a number of things here in terms of sources that you can use to find people, and give you examples of the importance of it. A relatively free source for you is to be able to tap into the wealth of university research done at universities and colleges around the United States. Mm-hmm. And to do that, you just need to go to scholar.google.com. And that is Google's specialized search engine for searching university and college databases for research reports that are published. And it's a bit of a mixed lot sometimes. Sometimes you'll only get an abstract, namely a summary of the results, and that can be very helpful and lead you to other places. Other times you get the full report, depending on what the university is doing. So if you want to, that's a great resource. It's free. Scholar.google.com is good.
That's amazing. That's incredible. And it's free.
It's free.
And it's totally free. So give me an example of a time where you found a scholar to bring in, why you needed them, kind of set the stage here for us. When would you need to go beyond what your own expertise is for your invention or working on any kind of innovation, really?
That's a good setup. It's actually the next thing on my list here.
Because you and
I. Even the example I'm going to give you, we didn't use Scholar specifically to find it. I used another process, but
Okay.
And I've told this story in a previous episode, but it's worth retelling. Nestle, a very capable company, great R&D in Switzerland and in the United States. They were trying to solve a very important business problem in their frozen food business. And they had hired McKinsey to solve it. McKinsey could not solve it. They hired another well-known innovation company. They were unable to solve it. And then they hired us. Just to give you a sense of how serious they were, they hired us. And I didn't learn about the two failures until they'd hired us. And I went, OMG, Richard, what have you gotten yourself into? So, but fast forward, here's what we did. I knew that I needed to get experts in frozen food research and technology and all of that sort of thing. And you say, now, where the heck do you go find them? And that's what I said when I started that. Well, I fast forward through, I found some trade associations, Frozen Food Research Trade Association. Who knew, right? Well, if you don't ask and you don't look, you don't find. And there I found eventually 3 scholars, Ashim Datta, a professor doing research at Cornell, Swami, doing research at Penn State, and another individual doing research on the cooking of frozen food at Ohio State. We brought those 3 experts in, along with the best R&D people from Nestle, and we had a 2-day session scheduled to do it. Now, remember, 2 companies had failed to solve it. And so using our process, the experts made presentations, we had collaborative discussions and everything else that goes on. And by noon of the first day, we're 25% into it. Noon of the first day, the vice president of R&D and vice president of marketing came up to me and said, Richard, my people tell me that we have, where's the camera? 3 solutions. We just need to figure out which one is right. That's an example where external expertise that we went out and found were critical to solving the client's problem extremely quickly. That was the good news. The bad news was we still had 75% of the 2 days to go. And so we made a decision. We went and solved some other problems. So we vastly over-delivered against that. But that's an example of where when you go out and find additional expertise that you can bring it in. Now, that's not something that many of you listening to this can do. So let me translate how this might help you.
Awesome.
Because these people are expensive to bring in for multiple days.
Now you're reading my mind.
Yes, budgets are important. You can go through the same process of finding people, okay? And all you need to be able to do is to be able to approach them. You can get connections on LinkedIn or wherever it is that you can do. Approach them and say, could I have 15 minutes, 30 minutes of your time to get, and here is what I'm working on, and I'm a personal inventor, and I'm at a roadblock, or whatever your story is, and approach them with that need. Many of them are really good-hearted folks, and they'll take 15, 30 minutes out of their day and have the conversation with you. If not, for $100, $125, you can tap into some really, really great expertise. So you don't need to do all the big money that Nestle and others were willing to pay. So those are the sort of people that you want to look for. I want to give you a little bit of advice in terms of diversity that you seek. I can give you other examples here, but I want to talk to you about the type of person you want to tap into and get advice from. When you go seeking experts, people love the expert title associated with them. And if they really love it, they get a big ego about what they know and what you don't know, okay? And instead of being a collaborator, they become a teller. They tell you what you need to do. Why? Because I'm the expert and I know better than you, okay? Run from that kind of person, okay? As well-intentioned as they might be. And what you're looking for is somebody who's collaborative, who listens to you, that understands what you're trying to do, not what they're trying to do, what you want to do, and what's important to you. And you can have a give and take conversation about your needs and their situations. when I go looking for experts, if I get on, I go through a qualification discussion with them, and if my radar says I've got a big ego on the line here, I say, thank you very much for your time. I wish you well. Goodbye. Okay. Because they can absolutely mess things up for you, despite whatever expertise they have. So I want to give you an example of that. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Kimberly Clark hired us with one of the most ambitious innovation projects that we've ever been hired for. It was actually the second biggest one that we've ever done. They wanted to invent multiple new categories of products focused on people over the age of 65 and getting into entirely new businesses. And to do that, they had some internal expertise, but Kimberly Clark's in the paper business. They're not in the people over 65 business. So there was a lot they didn't know about it. So I had to go out and find a truly world-class expert who would be highly collaborative, not a big ego at all. So fast forward, I found a guy by the name of Dr. Bill Thomas, Harvard Medical School. Oh, you go, oh, big ego, warning sign. Well, I had a conversation with Bill and immediately knew I wanted him part of the group. And we were holding this creative session up at Cornell on campus. And the very first day, I was out in front of the meeting room that we were in, waiting for him to show up because I had seen a picture of him, but I hadn't met him. So I'm standing out front and I see this guy walking up with a beard. Remember, Harvard Medical School. I see this guy walking up with flip-flops on, a hoodie on, and looking like he got up 15 minutes before he was walking up to the front. And I went, well, the beard fits. So I stuck my hand out and said, Bill, I'm Richard. Great to see you. And what happened was, this was, first of all, brilliant, experience beyond experience, but just wanting to help other people be successful. And you could be collaborative with him. He was nothing formal about him. It was not Dr. Bill. It was not Dr. Thomas. It was call me Bill or call me hey you, whatever. Let's roll our sleeves up and get this solved. Fast forward to the end of this. They paid us over $860,000 for this project, to give you a sense of how big this was. Wow. We invented over 40 new products, all 40 of which had chances for success that were 50% greater than the average new product idea. And we did that in part because of the great expertise that Bill brought and coaching that he did and everything else. So he was the epitome of great expertise and a collaborative, non-big ego person. When you have that kind of person in the room, you do great work. Now, how do you translate that to your world? Okay. You haven't got $860,000 to spend. Well, by the way, the bill cost me $10,000 a day. Those sorts of budgets are not something you're ever going to afford. Again, the same approach I suggested to you before. There's many people out there that are very good at what they do, and they love to help people that are trying to bring innovation to a business that they're interested in, and being able to put an oar in the water and help. And if you approach them with the right thing, I've got an idea, boy, I really respect your expertise, could really use your help. You figure out the conversation that's right for you. And in many times you can get 15, 20 minutes, an hour of a person's time for nothing. Okay. I've done it. Okay. So I'm giving you the example of how much that can help in big company world, bringing it back to your world about where you haven't got $10,000 a day to pay Dr. Bill for 5 days in a week. We paid him over $100,000 for the entire part of the work that we did. So that's kind of the kind of advice that you want to seek out that can help you. Now, why do you need that? Okay. I'm a personal inventor myself. Okay. I personally invent in terms of writing books. Those are the products. And I'm right in the midst of writing what I think may be the best book I've published 6 and written 8, and I'm writing my 9th book now. And these are things that I love doing, and I get very close to, and then I remind myself, Richard, you're very close. You need expertise.
Like every other entrepreneur or inventor out there.
That's exactly what I'm doing today. Before I got on this call, exactly what I was doing. I'm tapping into the expertise of others on the topic I'm writing about. And gosh, did I have a great experience this morning.
Wow.
I really got some great stuff. What did it cost me? It cost me about $5. Okay.
A little bit of time.
This is the sort of thing that you can do yourself. Okay. But what I'm trying to say here is it's important to your success. You need to go beyond your own view of what it is and open up new doors and windows that can make your idea bigger and bigger and bigger, and on a lot more solid foundation to begin with. And second, when you go to try and sell it, you'll be able to talk about the people that have high quality people that have put an oar in the water to help you get where you are. And that's going to be impressive to the people that you're trying to sell your idea to. Okay. So those are some of the things that I would suggest for your consideration, that you consider as you're developing ideas. Diversity is going to help you be more successful. It's that simple.
It's just like you answered every question that I had on my sheet here today. So we're going to jump into the questions from everybody else, but I just want the couple of quick nuggets just to kind of tie it all up in a bow that took away. And I hope you saw that there were dozens of golden nuggets in there for all of us to apply. But I don't think it's even just the front end. I think the entire path to commercialization with regard specifically to inventors and their products is fraught with challenges that need to be overcome, and finding the expertise from people that can collaborate with you, who are humble, not just experts who come in and tell you, but people who work with you, who ask smart questions to really understand what you're trying to do and then can add value to that is an important skill set. It's a soft skill that we need as inventors and entrepreneurs. So I love that. Thank you. Such great stories too. Okay, jumping into the questions here. Hi, Lisa and Richard. My question is, and I'm sorry I can't pronounce your name, Mr. Glasper. I can say that. My question is, as an inventor, what avenues would someone take to get an investor to invest? So going back to that expertise, I'll just answer this one real quick. From my perspective, if you're an inventor who wishes to license, typically working with investors doesn't make sense. If you have a line of products and you want to build a company and do a venture and find yourself needing an investment of any type, then working with a startup accelerator is the best place to get started with putting together your pitch deck, really clearly identifying what there's a business case for it, what the business model will be, the revenue model, all of those things, doing the lean business canvas model, for example, to help with your pitch. There's a lot of support services out there, but a startup accelerator in your community is going to be the strongest and safest place to land at the beginning, and then a launch pad for you to grow your business. Richard, would you add anything to that?
Yeah, I'll just bring, I want to point something out to people here. Lisa and I have known each other for a while, and I have just over the top tremendous respect for her skills and abilities. I know the two other key players in this industry, and Lisa and I talk about developing products and everything that are dramatically better than the competition. Mm-hmm. Lisa Lloyd is dramatically better than anybody else to innovators like yourselves. It just is. I'll just add one more thing to what Lisa just said, all of which is great advice. In the large company world, when you have an idea, the first thing that you need to be able to demonstrate to the internal bankers, okay, the company, management, that you're going to go say, give me whatever X number of dollars, you're going to need to be able to demonstrate with research. And we've talked about Merwin technology here before. That is objective quantitative research that tells you how big an idea you've got and what your year one sales can be. That's what the bankers at Procter Gamble and Gallo and other companies that I've worked with do. But on top of what Lisa just said.
No, thank you for bringing that up. It's a really good point. You can go to the letter I. I'll create a banner for it in a second here. I2GE, the number 2, GE.com. And there is a sample of the types of questions that you need to be prepared to answer before before purchasing a Merwin report. But Merwin is a way, and we have a past show on this. And if you'd like more information on that, you can reach out to me. I just popped up my banner. Go to the inventionaccelerator.com, book a free call with me, and I'll tell you more about this. But essentially, it is a science data-driven tool for quantifying the potential success. And it is, what is the statistic on its efficacy, Richard, on Merwin?
Yeah, I mean, the year one sales estimate is accurate to plus or minus 20%, and it doesn't get any better than that.
I mean, the only thing better would be a crystal ball, right? Plus or minus 10%.
I'm out of stock on crystal balls.
Right, exactly. That's it. Exactly.
Yeah.
So I hope that answered your question, but you're welcome to book a free call with me. We can talk more about either Merwin or startup accelerators or whatever, and I'll leave that up for a moment. Jeff asks, hi, Jeff, welcome to the show. How can you market a product that does things that everyone knows is possible? I'm referring to an electronic product that knocks out COVID or any other variant in about 10 minutes. Impossible. Yeah, thank you. If they know it's impossible, how do you market it? How do you demonstrate its efficacy if you don't have the money and can you bring in these resources like the people that we're talking about, Richard, using your Nestle example to demonstrate that there is a scientific way to do this?
Yeah, it's actually a very well asked question. I mean, it's nicely phrased because here's the answer. If I were to tell you that I have developed this morning something that can cure 99% of all cancer within 30 minutes, you would go, that's impossible, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So in the model of how you evaluate an idea's chances for success, when you have a very big promise, the next thing you need to do is give people a reason to believe that you can actually do what you just said you were going to do. So when you've got something that you think people, where the default is, well, that's impossible, you then can, the first thing you need to do is tell them the benefit. Here's the impossible benefit. I know you think it's impossible. And here is the reason or reasons, plural, to believe that this can actually do what I just said it could do. Exactly. So often in products, you load up on benefit communication, namely what it can do for you. But when you have this kind of promise, you need to load up on reason to believe. Now, there are 5 different strategies for writing a reason to believe. Many of them are very obvious, and all of that, you can go to Lisa, you can go to my Innovation Best Practices podcast and learn all about that for free, sort of thing. But that's how you're going to have to address something that people might think is impossible.
So the reason to believe being necessary, and I'll pop up here really quick. Let's see here. There is the website that I mentioned to you all, so you can go to learn more about Merwin if you'd like. If you're in a truly disruptive space of innovation, and this next question actually is about Swiffer, which is interesting, where you're going to need to invest a lot of time and money educating, not just on producing the product itself, creating the inventory, getting it in a warehouse, but educating the consumer. That's where the real reason to believe matters. And if you can't convince a company, you're never going to be able to convince the consumer. So I don't think approaching it from the perspective of how do I get just a company to believe, but in general, if someone's going to do the Scooby-Doo, thing, when you say it, the beautiful thing is if you have the proof is in the pudding. If you have something to support it and back it up with, you've got it at that point.
And here's the thing. It's when you have that level of communication challenge, you are probably going to need to provide people with multiple reasons to believe, because no one is going to do it. If I say Albert Einstein in his theory of relativity said this was possible, and all I'm doing is manifesting what he predicted, I guess it's 103 years since he published that ago. He's one of my heroes, by the way. Albert Einstein said this could be done, and I'm doing it. I'm just making this up to give you an example.
Mhm.
And then you would probably need some actual, if you can do visual demonstrations, I don't know what your idea is, but you need appropriate visualizations and things that can do. So you need multiple reasons to believe that you can actually do what you're going to do if you're going to convince people. And by the way, reason to believe communication is always important if you're going to try any kind of product, because you're trying to convince people to switch from the product they're currently using to meet the need to your new product. And you're not going to do that if you just go, hey, buy me. It doesn't work that way.
I was going to cut you off because I'm just so excited that you said that. It's true. Even if you have a very simple product, that it's obviously just from a picture, you can look at it. Oh, it's a pen. I know it does the job. I mean, I assume the ink is in there, but you're not asking me to really stretch my thinking on this. I still need a reason to believe that people will pick this pen up over this other pen over here when you're pitching me as a company for licensing. So the reason to believe the message may change from when you're pitching a company versus when you're pitching the consumer. But at a base level, they are exactly the same. And that is, why will someone choose you over all of the other alternatives on the market? Yes.
Yep. Just look at your own personal experience in this. So you see a new product on the shelf. You've been using Tide for 30 years, and now somebody wants you to buy this new brand that you've never heard of. And you go, why should I buy that? That's the question you ask yourself. And if you don't answer it, the consumer is not going to do a good job of answering it, and they're not going to buy your product.
It's knowing the why. Okay, John asks, hi, Richard, and thank you both for today. I have a product that I see will fit as an extended use product line for Swiffer. Any suggestions on how best to present it? And are they open to outside innovation? Thank you. So let's start with the second half first. Is Procter & Gamble, do you know, I know you haven't been there for a while, but you know some people there. Do you know if they're open or if they would consider outside innovation?
Yeah, they are. What the avenue is today, I don't know. Procter, to their credit, is open to, and in many cases solicits ideas. Swiffer is now a $1 billion business, and Procter's current strategy is really focused on making big brands mammoth brands. So they are looking for ideas in general to help make their bigger brands even bigger. And if you've got something that's truly unique, extended usage is potentially a good benefit. All depends on the context and everything else of what you're talking about. So I might Google something like, how do I submit an idea to Procter & Gamble, and kind of start there. And see if you get a link or something like that to be able to bring it in today. I used to know both people and avenues there, but I haven't knocked on their door in a long time. So,
okay, so Jeff, Dr. Morency also asks, need live blood analysis? Anyone know of a facility? So I think this probably lends itself to scholar.google.com. Yes.
Yeah, it could.
Finding maybe there's some sort of research that's been done that would align and support. If the research has already been done, if you can find an expert who's in the space that shows how electronics affect your blood.
Yeah, it's something that in this particular product that you're talking about, you need to watch out, because as you may know, Elizabeth Holmes, or whatever her name is.
Yeah, Theranos. Yeah,
got for fraud and is going to be sentenced in September for not doing it well. So I don't know, but I would stick with tried and true. And there's lots of labs and that sort of thing, if I'm understanding your question correctly, that you can tap into to get advice and service if you need it.
Sure. You may not need to actually have the blood work done. I mean, certainly later at some point that's going to happen. But for the purpose of demonstrating initially and getting and measuring interest, gauging interest from prospective licensees, having data that supports why the science could work or would work, which is what Richard was saying earlier about Einstein, could be enough to get to position you at least to get enough interest. And with that interest, it might be easier for you to either make your own decision to invest your own money in getting the blood work done, or for that matter, they may be willing, the company, if they're interested enough and it makes sense enough based on the data that it will work, they may be willing to invest that. So at least starting with some scholars, I think would be a good place. And for that matter, if you get scholars who really know this better than you, for that matter, tell you, no, won't work and here's why, then at least you can walk away, right? If you trust them.
Yeah.
So there's an option there for you. All right. So Gabriel's asking, how does the process go from meeting someone at a trade show to establishing an actual licensing deal? What are the steps? How many are there? And what's the timelines usually like? All right, I'm going to fly through these, Gabe, but if you would really like to dig into them, please feel free to book a free call with me. I'll put my banner back up in just a moment. You can go to theinventionaccelerator.com and we'll unpack this even further. But for everyone's benefit, I'll take a quick stab, and Richard, you can dive in and let me know if there's any gaps to fill. So first of all, the process for meeting someone at a trade show, just walk right up to the booth. You can certainly call before the trade show and schedule appointments. I personally don't do that. I frankly just don't have the time. And I find that just walking the show and walking right up to the booth is enough for me to get enough meetings that I run out of time at the show because I have so many conversations. So walking up to the booth and asking them who the right person to speak with about the possibility of taking on a new product. Sometimes they're going to tell you it's a procurement or a sourcing person because they're going to assume it's something that's already in production, which is fine. That's still a good place to start. Sometimes it'll be VP of marketing. They might want to qualify your question and say, well, take it on how or what category it is. So I walked up to Rubbermaid, for example. I was just at the houseware show and I asked who the brand manager was for the two categories of products that I wanted to show. And she walked me over and introduced me to the two brand managers. And we talked about them right there on the spot. And we scheduled time to follow up after the show. So that's essentially what the process was and the steps. I hope that covers that. Timeline wise, again, there's not a lot of time invested in it other than planning the show. Sometimes I'll also look ahead at the booths just to get an idea. And as soon as I get to a show, I also look at the catalog to see if there are any ads that stand out. Oh, I want to make sure I want to go to that booth because they're promoting this product and that's clearly in the line of what I'm here for. Richard?
Nope.
No, nothing to add there. Yeah, that one's a little bit more in my wheelhouse. But like I said, I hope that answers your question, Gabe. If you want, Gabriel, I'm sorry, I should say that. And if you're welcome to book a call, I'll pop up the Invention Accelerator for you as well. Grant. When you deal, and welcome, Grant. Grant was actually on our show I think it was last week, or I was on his show last Saturday. When you deal with medical, you basically have to play by the rules or have 6 or 7 figure deal, 6 or 7 figures to deal with the issues. Would you agree with that? Is that a space that you would kind of stay away with, Richard, or stay away from, excuse me?
Yeah, I mean, there are categories that have just built-in hurdles to go to market. Okay. For example, when I was at Procter Gamble, my first brand manager job was on a antibacterial bar soap, and the claims that we made and everything, and the science needed to back it all up, was fine for Procter, but for smaller companies trying to go through all the hoops and all the lawyers and all that sort of stuff, you just need to recognize if that's the path to market, and there's no end running it, and then in these kinds of things, there isn't, then you just need to step back and say, is my idea big enough to be able to get the kind of money necessary to do that on the one hand? On the other hand, the timelines necessary to get it done can be many months or years.
Yeah.
And at least for me, I'm not a very patient individual with those things. So I'll say, okay, I got another idea. So
I'll throw out a shout out too to Grant. If you haven't checked out 3D Musketeers, they're a phenomenal 3D printing company. So Grant's a great guy and he can help you with your printing. There's no paid advertising here. I just know from working with him, he's fabulous. And I agree. I've had many more big ideas than little ideas for that matter that I have just dismissed because I counted the cost of the time and energy. But I think if I had known, I'm taking notes here, even as you were talking, it's good to be reminded of a lot of these things. Finding the experts and aligning or partnering with them to help facilitate getting that message and the efficacy and all of those things at least lined up in a way that delivers an effective form of communication to a prospective licensee who can then take on all of those tasks and has the bandwidth and the runway to do it with. That would be the only path, I think, to ultimately. And if you get good at it, then you can invent lines that add, products that add to it. You've already got the relationships, then it makes more sense and you get that speed to market.
Yeah, I want to add one thing here, Lisa, before we get on to the next one. Because the thought just came to mind from somebody that I worked with. They had an idea, and they had a bunch of expertise, three areas of expertise that they needed to be able to develop the idea to a level that somebody could make a go or no go decision on the investment. And they got 3 people to participate in it for no cost up front, but with an agreement, legal agreement, that if this project reached a certain threshold of going to market or something, then the company, the individuals might get 5-10% of the company or whatever that is, deferring payment down the road and paid only if the product is successful. So that's an option that works in some situations, not all.
Absolutely. That's a really, really good suggestion. Okay, Dave says, I love it. Philosopher of innovation. I have developed a product and solved some difficult engineering problems. Then I found a provisional patent filed by some wanker that includes 3 other uses, and none of the practical problems have been solved. Some of it is actually impossible. So my working product is stymied by scattershot concept patent. What can I do? Richard, do you want to address it, or should I attack that one?
I'll let you take that, and if I have anything to add, I will. By the way, I love Dave. I'm glad you're a philosopher of innovation. It's good to see that you're trying to move from a philosopher, namely somebody who thinks about an innovation, to actually making it work.
Right
so
on.
much more to be learned, and by the way, so much more fun to be had. So.
The best philosophy has been proven.
Yeah.
So without having looked at the provisional patent, I'm not sure how you could see a PPA because they aren't publicly disclosed. So that kind of throws off this for me a little bit. Perhaps it was a utility patent pending and it's gone beyond the 18 months. And so now that application has been published and you're able to read it and you can see those things. But regardless, you've seen something that you think might be preventing you. And if I understand your question right, you've engineered some things that solve problems that are necessary and practical in comparison to what they've got. So that to me tells me you've got 2 different inventions. I'd say first, it's a legal question to address with your attorney and make sure that they're not preventing you from going to market. And as long as the green light is there, then what can you do? Keep going. Don't quit. Learn from it. Find out why. Why did they solve it that way? Is there a market for that? I hope that you're doing your customer interviews and getting the insights from the avatar of your ideal customer and learning how to solve the problem for enough people, and not just empathetically for yourself, but empathetically for everyone out there who is addressing that same problem. So it should be awesome. Look at it instead as an awesome opportunity to see things through another set of eyes, which brings in diversity, like Richard was talking about earlier, with other expertise. Ask the question why and get the answers. Why did they do it that way? Why am I not doing it that way? And if you have a solid business case for doing it your way and your attorney agrees that that is patentable, then I would say just keep going. Richard?
Yeah, there is my experience in innovation is that you always run into bumps in the road. Mm-hmm. You occasionally run into walls across the road.
Right.
And the path to success is built around going over, under, around those things in some, sort of creative way. And sometimes those things actually open up new possibilities that you never imagined possible as you get in to solve the problem. And the obstacle turns out to be a friend because it prompted you to explore an area that you hadn't thought of before. So don't be discouraged. The due diligence steps that Lisa just recommended to you are spot on. So make sure that you do that. But this is also about persistence, courage, boldness, damn the torpedoes, all that stuff.
Amen. I hope that answered it for you. Let's see here. Naji, I have a product that complements a line of products for a leading company. Should I approach them for licensing or their competitors or both? Would P and second to that would P&G, for example, sign an NDA? I'll let you address that question first, if you don't mind, Richard.
Yeah, different. We've already addressed that. I believe P&G has open doors to receiving ideas. Last I heard, they did. Other companies have different approaches. Some companies are reluctant to do it because they have to legally tiptoe around things, and they want to make sure they're doing the right thing and all that other sorts of stuff. So you need to figure that out. Are they willing to be open to taking ideas? The best thing you can do is do your research, knock on the door. If nobody answers, knock on another door, and at some point either determine that you can or you can't. Should I approach for licensing or competitors or both? It depends on your idea. You can say yes to both of those things, I would guess. Would Procter sign an NDA, or would other companies sign an NDA? I wouldn't work with we don't work with anyone where we don't sign an NDA. It's for the protection of the company. It's for your protection. If you're disclosing anything that you wouldn't want published anywhere. So NDAs I live by NDAs. I don't need an NDA because I live NDAs. I mean, that's a general thing. I understand what you're trying to do. You're asking some good questions. You're looking at options about how you can do that. The key thing I would ask you to do is make sure that before you get to that point, knocking on doors, that you've got an idea that's worthy of knocking on the door, and that the first time somebody sees it, they go, "Oh, wow, yes, come on in. I want to talk to you." And if you're not there, you may waste the opportunity of knocking on the door. They may answer once. Okay.
Awesome. So my experience with any of the large organizations, particularly publicly traded, but you start getting up to 500 million and above type companies, they're going to have their own NDA to help insulate them against frivolous lawsuits that their lawyers have already looked at. If you send them your NDA and they have to ask their lawyers to look it over every single time, they're just not going to. Right. So you're going to get something that might be kind of thick that basically says you're showing it to us, and we'll keep it in confidence, but we're not promising you that we're not going to show it to our team and all of that, because they have to make an intelligent business decision. So take a look at their agreement, and then you can decide if you want to sign that or not.
I'll give you a little surprise about NDAs.
Mm-hmm.
I have signed NDAs that are worthy of a book, a short novel or a short story, and I was shocked. I was the only innovation consulting working for a large division at Google for 2 years, and when I got the NDA from them, it was 1 page double spaced. And I went, hallelujah. This one I'll actually read before I sign. So,
wow. Yeah, it's very unusual. Okay, I'm going to fly through these. And to finish answering your question, I have a priority calculator. There's actually something you can see on YouTube. If you go to my YouTube channel, there it is, pop it up, youtube.com/ICanInvent, on how to choose which ideas to move forward with and how to prioritize those ideas. The reason I say that is whether or not to go after all the companies at once or one at a time. If you prioritize the ideas in the same way that you would prioritize the companies that you want to pursue, so maybe how big they are, who you just think is the best fit, who you just like the best for whatever reason, has the most distribution, or maybe you want to fly in a smaller company for any reason, whatever. You prioritize those, take them in that order, but it doesn't mean you necessarily have to wait until you get a no from one to move on to the other. I think it's a judgment call and a gut call, a business decision you have to make each time. So I always start with the one that I'd like to license to most. And then in that process, say they want to take it back to their team and review it. I'm not going to call another company. It's too early for me to decide that it's time to let other companies know about this. But if I see that that's dragging on, or there's any kind of vacillation in that process of making a decision, then I'll say, that's fine. You continue to do what you need to do, but I'm going to also continue to research and pursue other opportunities. And so that way I don't have everybody out there knowing about what I'm working on at the exact same time. In case I work with one, now my competitors also know what we're working on, right? But it's strategic and it's a business decision each time which one to move forward with. So I'm trying to answer these quickly.
Good advice.
Thank you very much. Let's see. Next question is, I'm scrolling because there's a lot of comments. Thank you for all your comments, guys. I appreciate you. I can't believe we only have 10 minutes left. Wendy's asking, hi, Wendy, by the way, are there specific licensing agents who work with soft lines? Have you ever worked with a licensing agent, Richard?
Nope.
Yeah.
No.
So licensing agents are hard to find, mostly because they're not in the business of promoting to inventors. They're in the business of promoting to companies. And there's a very small contingency of people like us who know how to do this out there. And we're very, very particular. And we don't want a whole bunch of inventors submitting a whole bunch of products to us because we can get inundated. And that's not a good, effective way, a useful way to spend our time. So generally speaking, they're hard to find altogether. I don't know of any specifically who only work with soft lines. Curious to know why you're asking though, Wendy. Maybe we can talk about it another time. Dean, I'm going to pop this up and just read it. I'm not even sure. Hi, Lisa and Richard. We just returned from IHA, which is the International Houseware Show in Chicago. Lisa, as you know, Wake Up Wine is already an acknowledged and market distributed product with more than 40,000 taste tests and 100% at 100% and is carried via major retailers like Williams-Sonoma, Brookstones, etc. However, despite having this great success in both the wine and spirits retailing channel, I'm curious what Richard, with his work background in the wine industry, cut off, I'm guessing what you would do. I don't know, your question cut off. Maybe we just ran out of room. So Dean, do me a favor and finish asking that question. What would you do with that, Richard?
I need to know more about the product.
Yeah.
I mean, Gallo today is a private company, and it's as a result of an acquisition that they made from Constellation Brands, buying all of their wine brands. It's the largest wine company in the world, and but they're as a family-run company, they are quite different than many publicly held companies, as I discovered when I moved from Procter Gamble, publicly held, to working at the time with Ernest Gallo, who was a co-founder of the company. Major culture change, major process change, all that sort of stuff. So, but if I know more about the product, maybe I can help.
Yeah, I guess just real quickly, do you think it's that category is something that a young entrepreneur, and I obviously mean by young, I mean new business, has a space for? Can they compete in that space, or are they better off aligning themselves with another beverage company, for example, or spirit company in this case?
Yeah, I mean, when you're, yeah, I mean, it's hard. It's hard to say. I mean, Gallo is not going to, I think, is not going to align itself with anything other than wine sold in bottles, or in the case of Pita Vella, wine in a box, and other things that go along with that are probably not something they're going to be interested in. So then you really have a retail product with retailers that sell wine products, you know, how to open wine, how to put a nitrogen layer down to protect the wine from oxidation, all that sort of stuff. So, right
on. Dan, just so you know, Dan Wiggins, yes, we are taking questions. This is live. If you're participating right now, someone may be listening to a replay, but yes, we are taking questions in the chat. Just drop your questions and we'll see if we can get through all of them before we run out of time here in about the next 6 or so minutes. Wendy's wondering if she needs to have IP first so they don't run with your idea. And in general, you should have IP. And by IP, what I'm specifically referring to is patents. Trademarks and copyrights aren't relevant to the licensing process for products. So yes, you should before you're even pitching companies. If you're not patent pending, there's all kinds of reasons beyond just getting knocked off. You also start the clock, prevent you potentially from getting your patent down the road if you don't do it in time. There's all kinds of reasons. So at least have a patent pending in place before you start talking to agents and or companies about your products. Let's see here. We're coming up on the end of our program. So if you've got any other questions, make sure you drop them. I've got a couple questions left in the chat. If you have them, drop them now. Otherwise, we're going to run out of time. All right, Dean, I'm curious what Richard, with his work background, there we go. He just rewrote the question in another way. So would you recommend to Wake Up Wine to locate reps who sell products to the wine and spirits industry rather than only wine distributors who are not skillful in selling complementary products?
Yeah, I'll give you my sense of trying to get other people, if you don't like distributors and how they, quote, sell your product, which is not a lot of selling, quite frankly, then other avenues I'm not sure are going to be any better. It's one of the things that makes Gallo such a monster. They have their own sales organization that either actually manages distributors themselves or manages distributors with top salespeople. The wine industry is one of the most fractionalized businesses out there, hundreds of brands, and how you get attention. You know, you got to win in Wine Spectator and other sorts of areas to be able to make progress in these things. It's a very tough business to compete in with smaller products. It really is. I don't want to discourage you again if you have one of these ideas that when people look at it, they go, wow, it stands out and above other options that are there, then your sales job becomes easier. But if it's not at the wow, dramatically better than what exists out there today, which means in many ways I don't like using these terms, but sells itself, because to a great extent that'll help you do that, then you're swimming upstream. It's a difficult thing to do.
And finding the experts that can help you evaluate where the challenges are in your business, not just with your innovation, but this is where we all started today, right? Finding the right expertise to help you develop the right products, market the products to the right companies, right, or right customers in a way that is palatable and believable and dramatically better than all the competition. That is the goal. That is everybody's objective here. So if you can demonstrate that and get the right team together, and finding the right team always starts with asking the right questions. And that's really where I wanted to wrap things up with you today, Richard. I think that before you've ever hired an expert, you've had to interview the clients, the Procter Gambles or whoever, right? And you have to define the problem.
Yeah. We're in the midst right now of where it looks like we're going to get a major project from a major international company that's got one of the most difficult projects I've ever considered for a whole host of reasons that I won't go into. But you genuinely need to find out what you want to accomplish, and then you start defining what are the capabilities and resources you need to be able to do that. That identifies the kind of expertise that the company doesn't have, but it wishes it did have to be able to solve the problem. And then here's the magic of quantum idea generation. Those experts in Nestle, I brought them into a creative session, sitting at tables with the R&D people from Nestle, from the marketing people at Nestle, from the consumer research people at Nestle, with our best people who know how to facilitate and get big ideas. that combustion that comes together when all of those people are there working to develop ideas simultaneously. It is so much more powerful than talking to a consultant and then talking to another consultant, and then you have to connect the dots. The dots connect instantly when you're using quantum idea generation in that kind of environment.
Nailed it. I mean, that just like ties everything up in a bow. So I hope you all have gleaned some amazing pearls from this today. I'm afraid it's time to wrap up. I want to remind everyone that you can book a free call with me to learn more about how to successfully invent your products by going to the inventionaccelerator.com. And you can also help us get the word out by sharing this program with others in your community. And that would be wonderful, a wonderful way to help support me continuing to do this and bringing it to you. If you missed any part of today or just want to go back and rewatch, you can come back to the page that you're watching it on right now on Facebook or LinkedIn. And you can always listen to InvenTank on all major podcast platforms. Richard, thank you so much for once again doing this for me. I am so grateful to you. He doesn't do this for the money. I am definitely not paying him, and he doesn't even help independent inventors, but he's bringing that domain expertise from those large companies to us so that we can apply it in our businesses and dramatically improve the invention success rate. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. And thanks again, Richard.
Bye-bye.
Have a great week.